Cool Figure TV. Revolutionary salute. Revolutionary salute. Like, share, subscribe. Welcome to the House of Revolution. You know I'm your humble host, the Yao Mean of Revolution. Nuclear summer. Iran shocks the world and targets Israel nuclear weapons. Ooh, they is devastated right now. Before we get into that, be sure to wipe your feet. That means hit the like button. You in the House of Revolution. Like, share, subscribe, support the platform, y'all. Well, revolution is a way of life, and revolution is for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I got some revolutionary dinner for y'all. Israel, the U.S., they scared to death because Iran done shook the world with this attack they did today. Whoa. Whoa. Now, did you... Whoa. That's pretty scary. Trump told the world he had destroyed. They say Iran didn't even have these type of missiles no more. Iran told the world we're saving some of the best for last. This ain't even some of the best, and that's devastating to Israel. It's a bunch of Israeli nuclear scientists is dead right now. I wonder how long they're going to take to tell the world, because Iran targeted it. Iran targeted the bunker where the scientists will run to during a missile attack. Now, they didn't just target the nuclear reactor. They saving that for the grand finale if Israel's stupid enough to play nuclear games with them. But what they showed Israel in the world today is we can have a nuclear cloud over Israel whenever we get ready. A precision strike on their reactor will have nuclear waste all over Israel. But I'm hearing that they hit the bunker where the scientists would hide during an attack. And that's why they use this missile. That's why they use a missile that couldn't be stopped. And they letting the whole world see what we can do to these people. Don't you know we still showing some restraint? Whoa. Whoa. No way you can stop no missile like that. These people are terrified right now. Trump said today the war's winding down. Oh, I know it is. You seen that, didn't you, Mr. President? You don't want that talking in your way the president is staying, or one of these hotels. You know, you don't want one of them missiles talking where Marco Rubio and them might be staying if they go to the Middle East or something. And they targeted the base in Diego Garcia. Ooh, that's pretty far away. Pretty far away. That means every they can hit all kind of different places in Europe.
Incredible and dramatic visuals emerging at this hour appear to show a missile strike in Dimona in southern Israel, a location of immense strategic sensitivity. Footage circulating online captures the moment a missile impacts the ground, with another angle suggesting a possible interception attempt just seconds before.
It was so devastating they couldn't hide it from the world. You can't hide it from you. The world talking about it because it's what Iran was targeting. They can't be quiet about this. Nigga, Iran might send them people to hell tomorrow with a strike on their nuclear reactor. They're shook right now.
The strike hit the area. Emergency response teams were quickly deployed to multiple locations in Dimona, where several people were reported injured in the aftermath of the strike.
Plenty of people did, especially those scientists that tried to hide in that bunker that got hit. They shouldn't have ran out. That's what Iran was targeting. See, Iran played cat and mouse with them. Salute family. Iran played cat and mouse with them. Sent some missiles over there. Knew they had already had the intelligence. People were talking about where did Iran get this intelligence from? China and Russia. So they knew exactly if they targeted this area. This is the city where this is the city, Dimona, where they keep their nuclear weapons at. They targeted the city where the nukes is at. Iran already knew that if we target this city, the scientists, they're going to run to this bunker over here. Okay, we're going to send some missiles, but then we're going to target that bunker.
According to Israel's Magen David Adom, at least 20 people were injured in the attack, including a 10-year-old boy and a 40-year-old woman. Additional patients are being treated for minor injuries and trauma-related symptoms. The strike has drawn particular attention due to Dimona's proximity to one of Israel's most sensitive installations, the Shimon Peres Negev Nuclear Research Center. Located in the Negev Desert, the Dimona facility is widely believed to be at the core of Israel's nuclear program, despite being officially described as a research center. It remains one of the most heavily guarded sites in the country. The latest developments come amid escalating tensions following reported attacks on Iran's Natanz nuclear facility, raising fears that critical nuclear-linked sites on both sides are increasingly becoming part of the conflict's expanding battlefield.
All right, you got to stop buying generic Viagra if y'all over 40. You can get 9 pills of 100 milligram generic Viagra for just $7 with free shipping.
Fresh fears are emerging over nuclear safety as Iran's key facilities come under renewed attack. Iran's Natanz nuclear enrichment facility has reportedly been targeted again in a U.S.-Israeli airstrike. The report, carried by Iran's Tasnim news agency, says the attack took place earlier today. Iranian authorities have strongly condemned the strike, calling it criminal. They accused the United States and what they termed the usurping Zionist regime of violating international law. Officials say the attack is contrary to global commitments surrounding nuclear safety and security. Despite the strike, Iran's Atomic Energy Organization has issued a crucial assurance. It says no leakage of radioactive material has been detected at the Natanz complex. Authorities also stress that there is no immediate danger to residents living nearby. Natanz remains Iran's primary uranium enrichment site and a critical part of its nuclear program. This is not the first time the facility has been hit during the ongoing conflict. In the early days of the war, satellite imagery showed significant damage to several buildings. At that time, the UN nuclear watchdog reported no radiological consequences from the strike. The facility is located about 220 kilometers southeast of Tehran. It has also been targeted in previous confrontations, including the 2025 Iran-Israel conflict. Meanwhile, concerns are rising over another sensitive nuclear site in Iran. New high-resolution imagery shows a projectile impact near the Bushehr nuclear power reactor. The images reveal damage just 350 meters from the core of the facility. Experts say the debris pattern raises serious questions about the origin of the strike. Notably, the trajectory appears to point north, away from the Persian Gulf. This has intensified speculation and concern over how close the strike came to a nuclear disaster. The situation has triggered alarm among global nuclear.
They're scared to death because Iran was warning them. Iran can hit whatever it want to hit, like it hit that bunker where them scientists ran to. The world gonna find that out. Israel got maybe a dozen scientists. They're dead right now. Just like they killed Iranian scientists, Israeli nuclear scientists got killed trying to run to that bunker. So this was a warning that they can hit that reactor whenever they get ready.
Authorities. UN nuclear chief Rafael Grossi has urged all sides to exercise maximum restraint. He has called for transparency, communication, and strict avoidance of nuclear targets. There are also growing calls for coordination with Russia to prevent further escalation. As tensions continue to rise, the risks surrounding nuclear facilities are becoming increasingly severe. The world is now watching closely as the conflict edges toward a dangerous new threshold.
This is a chilling moment in an already volatile.
You know, there are moments in history when the mask slips, when the carefully constructed facade of power crumbles so publicly that you almost have to look away out of sheer embarrassment for the people involved. We are witnessing one of those moments right now, and it is unfolding across the Persian Gulf. in the smoldering wreckage of what were once the most heavily fortified American military installations on the planet. The 66th wave of Iranian military strikes has just concluded, and let me tell you, the landscape of American power in West Asia has been fundamentally altered.
Iran has launched a strike on a U.S. military facility in Kuwait, igniting large fires and sending thick smoke visible from the Iraqi border.
Gulf states say they are responding to missile and drone attacks by Iran. This, remember, after the attacks reported at several Gulf Arab nations.
The war in Iran has spread rapidly across West Asian nations, Gulf nations, and...
We're not just talking about a few mortar rounds landing in the desert. We are talking about the complete and total demolition of the biggest secret U.S. ammunition depot in Arabia, a facility so sensitive that its existence was barely acknowledged, now a smoking crater. We are talking about the near-total destruction of aircraft hangars at Kuwait's Ali Al Salem Air Base, a critical hub for coalition forces, with satellite data from NASA's FIRM system confirming massive fires that burned for hours. According to open-source intelligence and satellite imagery analyzed by defense publications, 3 Kuwaiti Eurofighter Typhoons were completely destroyed in their shelters, and 2 Italian Eurofighters were severely damaged when precision missiles punched through the reinforced roofs as if they were made of paper. The scale of this operation is almost incomprehensible. U.S. Naval Service centers in Bahrain, Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, Al Dhafra in the UAE, and even facilities in Saudi Arabia and Jordan were hit simultaneously in a coordinated multi-front barrage that has exposed the complete vulnerability of the American defense network. A friend of mine on the ground in Kuwait told me that the air raid sirens didn't just go off. They wailed for 2 hours straight, a continuous, unbroken scream of terror as the sky lit up with incoming missiles that the much-hyped American and Kuwaiti air defense systems simply could not stop. This was not an attack. It was a surgical demolition of U.S. military hegemony in the region. And in the midst of this chaos, we are watching a spectacle that is almost Shakespearean in its tragic irony. Donald Trump, the man who boasted he could defeat Iran in the time it takes to get a McDonald's order, the man who promised his donors a quick and easy war, is now trapped. He is trapped in a quagmire of his own making, a war that is now stretched into its second month, with no end in sight. And Iran has made it explicitly clear that this war will only end when Israel is completely defeated and humiliated. That is the stated objective, and everything we are seeing suggests we are headed exactly in that direction. The man who walked into the White House claiming he would be the great peacemaker is now desperately calling for allies to send ships to the Strait of Hormuz, only to be laughed off the phone. According to reports, Trump is livid, cursing allied nations for being ungrateful, demanding that they send naval assets to help escort American ships, but nobody is coming. When the United States calls for help and no one answers, what does that tell you about the state of the empire? The Pentagon is in open revolt. U.S. generals, looking at the tactical situation, are refusing direct orders to invade the Persian Gulf island of Karg, or to deploy the A-10 Thunderbolt II ground attack jets that would be necessary for such a suicidal ground operation. They know what we all know, that putting American boots on that island would not be an invasion. It would be a massacre. It would mark the final, definitive defeat of American military power, the end of the full-spectrum dominance doctrine, and likely the end of the Trump presidency itself, either through impeachment or imprisonment for leading the nation into a catastrophic, unwinnable war. Before we get into the deep details of this humiliating defeat for the war hawks, I need to ask you to do something. If you are tired of the lies, if you are tired of watching mainstream media carry water for Netanyahu and Trump, while American troops get blown up for no reason, I need you to hit that like button. Hold it down. Share this video. Drop a comment, even if it's just a dot. Or better yet, tell me what you think about the greatest military in the world getting its nose bloodied in the desert. Subscribe to this channel because we are one of the few places left that is telling you the truth about what is happening. Without the censorship, without the Zionist filters, just raw, honest journalism. Your support is the only thing keeping this channel alive against the algorithmic suppression we face every single day. Now, let's actually dig into the specifics of what happened, because the mainstream media narrative is already being twisted to hide the scale of the catastrophe. we have to go beyond the official statements and look at the open source intelligence, the satellite imagery. This latest wave of strikes, part of the 66th wave since the conflict began, was not a random act of violence. It was a meticulously planned operation designed to degrade American air power to the point of non-functionality. The attacks on Ali al-Salem Air Base in Kuwait are particularly instructive. Satellite imagery released by commercial providers shows not just superficial damage, but collapsed roofs, shattered hangar sections, and burn marks that indicate secondary explosions, the kind of explosions you get when fuel and munitions cook off. The targeting pattern shows that the Iranian military wasn't just shooting randomly, they were systematically destroying the infrastructure required to sustain air operations, the maintenance areas, the fuel storage facilities, and most importantly, the hardened aircraft shelters. Let's talk about that claim from the White House. You heard it, right? The press secretary got on Fox News and bragged that the U.S. has struck over 7,800 targets in Iran, sinking over 120 Iranian naval ships. 7,800 targets. And yet, here we are, weeks later, and Iran is still launching waves of missiles that are hitting American bases with impunity. Do you see the disconnect? This is the same logic that gave us mission accomplished in Iraq. They are bombing empty buildings and fishing boats, and then telling the American people that they are winning, while the reality on the ground is that the Iranian military has completely reversed the strategic equation. The hypocrisy is staggering. The French Foreign Ministry spokesperson got up the other day, wagging their finger at Iran, demanding that Tehran change its behavior for the sake of peace.
Israélien, notre conviction que quel que soit le résultat des opérations militaires en cours, devra être complété par une solution politique produisant des effets durables. À cet égard, le régime iranien doit se résoudre à des concessions majeures et à un changement radical de posture permettant qu'émerge une telle solution, permettant la coexistence pacifique de l'Iran avec son environnement régional et permettant au peuple iranien de construire librement son avenir.
Iran change its behavior? When Israel and the United States are the ones who launched the initial strikes on Iranian soil, assassinating senior commanders and bombing nuclear facilities? The arrogance is breathtaking. If France wants peace, maybe they should be telling Israel to stop violating Iranian sovereignty, or telling the US to stop using the Gulf monarchies as launchpads for aggression. But they won't, because the Western political class operates on a simple rule. When the West does it, it's self-defense. When Iran does it, it's terrorism. This brings us to the media war, which is almost as important as the physical war. The propaganda apparatus working for Trump and Netanyahu has been working overtime to convince a sleepy public that Iran is the aggressor. You see it on networks like Channel 4, where they bring on guests expecting a certain narrative. But recently, the Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman absolutely demolished a Channel 4 presenter live on air, calling out the blatant bias, the refusal to ask tough questions about Israeli war crimes, and the unspoken censorship that governs Western reporting on this conflict.
You're attacking a gas facility in Qatar.
The reality is that the United States and Israel are abusing the soil, territories, and assets.
You're not attacking
around us.
Okay, but you're not merely attacking US assets. You're also attacking a gas field in Qatar and other Gulf neighbors. I just wonder why.
I was explaining. Tell me, who has started this war in the first place? And who has started attacking our gas field, South Pars field? It was Israel and Americans that attacked our gas field, our energy infrastructure in the first place. What we are doing is fighting back in accordance with our right of self-defense. As I said, we are not attacking any country, we are defending ourselves. Those military bases, those assets, those installations that are being used by Americans to conduct their military aggressions against Iran are legitimate targets under international law.
But a gas field is not a military asset, is it?
I'm telling you, yes, the gas field is shared by, we have made it clear that if Iran's infrastructure is attacked, we would have to retaliate in self-defense against any infrastructure that is shared by the United States. That's part of the war game they have imposed on Iran.
Right, we'll come back to why the US says they launched this war in the first place. But I wonder what you say to your former allies in the Gulf who are calling for you to stop the strikes on civilian infrastructure, stop the strikes on ships going through the Strait of Hormuz. Will you listen to them? Oman, Qatar, these are countries that you've cooperated with in the recent past.
Sure. We do not feel any animosity or hostility toward the nations of the region. We common a lot with these countries. This is the result of American-Israeli aggression against Iran. Please do not forget that the military bases of the United States that are scattered around Iran are being used by the United Israel to conduct their military aggression against Iran.
But this you say, sorry, I must just pick up on
imposed war.
I must just pick up on it, though. You say you've got no animosity to your Gulf neighbours. You're attacking Qatar's gas field. Abu Dhabi and Kuwait are under attack too, just in the last few hours. That is not a defensive act, is it? That's Iran lashing out.
No, it is not. As I said, we are only targeting those assets, those installations that partly or wholly belongs to the United States. They are attacking our infrastructure, and Iranian armed forces are very careful to attack those military bases, those assets that are used by the United States in any form or manner to conduct their military aggression against Iran.
A gas field is not a military asset, but we'll move on because we have lots of other issues to discuss. Let's talk about your own self-interest.
Was Iranian field a military objective? No,
I'm just taking issue with your description of Qatar's gas field as a military asset.
Let's talk about Donald Trump. Let's mock him, because he deserves to be mocked. This is a man who looked at the world and thought he could bully the Islamic Republic of Iran with a few tweets and airstrikes. He boasted, according to reports, that he could end Iran in 5 minutes by destroying the oil facilities on Karg Island. But he didn't. And do you know why he didn't? Because his own military generals told him it was insane. They told him that striking the oil infrastructure would send oil prices skyrocketing to $150 a barrel, crash the global economy, and trigger a massive Iranian retaliation that would close the Strait of Hormuz completely. But more than that, the generals are refusing to obey orders to put ground troops anywhere near the Persian Gulf, as I said previously, and now the Pentagon is in a state of near mutiny. The Joint Chiefs have looked at Trump's demands for an invasion of the Gulf Islands, and they have effectively said, no, this is Trump's quagmire. He started a war thinking it would be a quick political win, a way to distract from his Epstein legal troubles and show strength. Instead, he has gotten a multi-front war that is now stretching into its second month, with Iran vowing, publicly, loudly, and clearly, that the war will only end when Israel is completely defeated and humiliated. And where are we headed? We are headed toward exactly that. The entire American strategy was based on the assumption that Iran would fold under pressure, that the regime would collapse if we just hit them hard enough. But the opposite has happened. The resistance is winning, and there is nothing that Trump, Netanyahu, or their media lapdogs can do to stop it. Subscribe and stay tuned for more updates, because this story is far from over. In fact, it is just here.
With each passing day, the situation in the Middle East continues to deteriorate rapidly. The realization that Israel and the United States have failed to achieve their goals in 3 weeks of fighting forces the leadership of these countries to resort to more radical actions towards Iran. Even though Donald Trump constantly declares that he is not planning any ground operations against Iran, everything that is happening points to the opposite. A few hours ago, American sources confirmed that the U.S. Central Command is preparing to send a second amphibious assault ship, the USS Boxer, to the Middle East. It is reported that this warship will deliver 2,200 Marines from the 11th Marine Expeditionary Unit from San Diego to the combat zone. Furthermore, sources confirm that the Pentagon is accelerating the deployment of U.S. Marines to the Middle East due to the critical situation in the Strait of Hormuz. At the same time, sources report that the U.S. Central Command also plans to deploy a third amphibious assault ship carrying American Marines to the combat zone. My dear truth seekers, all this indicates that the Pentagon is preparing an operation to unblock the Strait of Hormuz through a ground invasion of southern Iran. The fact that the United States is preparing a ground operation against Iran was also indirectly confirmed by the Israeli authorities. In particular, on March 20th, Tel Aviv announced that the Israeli army is ready to participate in a ground operation against Iran. At the same time, the Israeli authorities admitted that it would not be possible to defeat Iran solely by airstrikes. According to them, a ground operation will be needed to defeat Iran. Well, my dear friends, against this backdrop, a reasonable question arises: how does tiny Israel, with its small army, intend to defeat huge Iran through a ground operation? It is obvious that Israel is counting on the help of not only the U.S. Army, but also pro-American terrorist groups and anti-Iranian forces, such as the Kurds and Balochis. My dear truth seekers, if Donald Trump still decides to launch a ground operation against Iran, it will be the biggest mistake of his life. The American people will never forgive Trump for the deaths of hundreds of thousands of American soldiers, who were sacrificed for the sake of Israel's national interests. Meanwhile, the U.S. Central Command has confirmed that the U.S. Army has begun using A-10 Thunderbolt II subsonic attack planes to combat Iranian maritime and aerial drones in the Strait of Hormuz. At the same time, it is worth noting that over the past 2 days, these warplanes have tried to destroy 5 Iranian maritime drones in the Strait of Hormuz. However, all these attempts were unsuccessful. Furthermore, independent monitoring services have begun documenting the operations of American AH-64DE Apache attack helicopters in the Strait of Hormuz. Thus, it becomes clear that the United States is gradually increasing the number of combat aircraft over the Persian Gulf to ensure the safe passage of Western oil tankers through the Strait of Hormuz. However, these actions by the American command carry great risks for the United States, especially given the fact that Iran possesses tens of thousands of maritime drones, armed with mobile air defense systems. Against this backdrop, the United States may lose dozens of its combat helicopters and planes over the Strait of Hormuz. Meanwhile, Iran continues to launch combined missile strikes against Israel, American military bases, and Arab states, due to the presence of U.S. forces there. So, a few hours ago, Iranian ballistic missiles hit another refinery, this time in Kuwait. In particular, we are talking about the Mina al-Ahmadi refinery. At the moment, firefighters are working to contain the fire, to reduce the risk of complete destruction of the plant's fuel reserves and the main infrastructure. It is noteworthy that this refinery was the largest in Kuwait and supplied petroleum products to Southeast Asia, New Zealand, Europe, and Australia. By the way, right after the Iranian missiles hit that refinery, a shortage of gasoline started in Australia. It is reported that in New South Wales alone, 150 gas stations were left without fuel. However, the missile attacks on Kuwait did not end there. On the morning of March 20th, Iranian missiles and drones hit the Ali al-Salem airbase. As a result, 3 Eurofighter Typhoon fighter jets of the Kuwaiti Air Force were destroyed. 2 more Italian Air Force combat aircraft were seriously damaged. Meanwhile, on the morning of March 19th, hundreds of witnesses in the city of Larissa, in eastern Greece, made a shocking statement. In particular, they stated that a damaged American stealth bomber, B-2 Spirit, landed at Thessaly Airport. According to them, this plane was smoking and was engulfed in flames. However, it turned out that the Greek citizens were mistaken. The damaged burning plane was not a B-2 Spirit, but a top-secret American stealth drone, RQ-180. It is noteworthy that information about the burning American stealth drone RQ-180 appeared right after Iran hit an American stealth fighter jet F-35 over its territory. As it turned out, the stealth drone RQ-180 and the stealth fighter jet F-35 were hit simultaneously over the western and central parts of Iran. Furthermore, on March 20th, Iranian and Russian sources stated that Iran had hit a stealth drone RQ-180 and a stealth fighter jet F-35 using the Russian air defense system S-300 PMU-2, which was introduced in early September 1997. It is noteworthy that American military experts also confirmed this information. At the same time, it is reported that although the damaged American fighter jet and drone managed to land on their own, their further restoration is not possible, since the damage turned out to be very serious. Undoubtedly, the incident in the sky over Iran has caused serious reputational damage to the United States. It became evident that the U.S. stealth fighter jets and drones, developed over 2 decades, have significant flaws. That is why they proved powerless even against the old Russian air defense system, S-300 PMU-2. By the way, on March 19, an authoritative Russian military expert, Boris Razin, citing his own sources in the Russian military department, confirmed that Iran has not only old Russian air defense systems in service, but also at least one modern air defense system S-400, which was located near Isfahan, before the war.
But our lies.
Three weeks after the war began, Iran is not exhausted. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, launched a sustained offensive to deter U.S.-Israeli aggression, announcing the 71st wave of Operation True Promise 4, which introduced new tactics and more advanced systems, firing super-heavy, precise missiles and attack drones simultaneously. Iranian media reported on March 21st. They tell you that Iranian missile launchers have been destroyed, and the country has practically run out of missiles and drones, IRGC said. IRGC added that the new tactics were developed after weeks of identifying the enemy's weaknesses, with each wave of attacks involving intelligence gathering and mapping of vulnerable points, response times, and gaps. Segil has now been confirmed in service alongside Ahmad and Qatar, 2-stage, solid-fuel ballistic missiles with a range of 2,500 kilometers, developed entirely indigenously. Solid fuel means minimal launch preparation time. There is no liquid refueling window for detection and targeting. The missile is already in the air, before satellites can react. The IRGC statement was very straightforward, stating that the attacks hit Tel Aviv and Rishon LeZion, using precision-guided Ahmad missiles, Qatar multiple warhead missiles, and attack drones. The 71st wave also targeted the U.S. bases at Ali Al Salem in Kuwait, Al-Kharj in Saudi Arabia, and Camp Victoria in Iraq, as part of the gradual reduction campaign.
Saudi Arabia pissed too. It's good. They can't do that.
As for the drone attack on Ben Gurion Airport, they reportedly targeted.
Told y'all, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard released a statement yesterday. I can't wait for them to say it on video so I can play it. Released a statement saying that if any of their islands are touched, they're going to erase some historical mistakes that was made. I told y'all that. They're going to go into Bahrain. They're going to seize territory. They're going to be the ones.
Targeted fuel tanks and refueling of military aircraft, airport operations, and flights at the airport.
Allahu Akbar!
Operations were temporarily halted pending further assistance. Iran warned that the battlefield would become more intense and difficult, with the Strait of Hormuz still locked to the west, and Iran had just informed the world that it had taken note.
Whoa. 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 Abba. Whoa. Whoa. Abba, this is the first part. Wow. That is crazy. I just get. Wow. Whoa. 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 Abba.
That was the second video. A third video, as we can see here. That was the third video. Let's look at a couple of other angles as well to understand the scale of this strike. It was a very particular missile that Iran landed. That was the fourth video. Let's see what else we have here.
تبقى حادية هذه حاضر والله طاحت بس هي الخبط والله يا طاح والله يا طاح بس الخبط
So that was the fourth or fifth video, and of course the clearest one was this one over here.
Whoa. 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 Abba. Whoa. Whoa. Abba, this is the first.
So, what are we talking about exactly here? What kind of a missile did Iran use, and what did they attack in Dimona? Well, firstly, the attack came after the United States and Israel carried out an attack near Natanz, one of the Iranian nuclear facilities. After that attack, almost immediately, Iran launched this attack against the Israelis, against the genocide state. Now, this missile, we can see from the progress of the missile, by the way, that we're talking about a hypersonic ballistic missile, one of the fastest Iranian missiles, could be a Khorramshahr 4 potentially. I'm going to show you the destruction in a bit. And we can see the missile not being intercepted by several other missiles. So we've had at least 1, 2, or 3 missiles trying to intercept it and exploding around the missile, which indicates that no Israeli system stands a chance against this Iranian missile. The destruction was significant. There was a significant level of destruction in this attack. And Israel posted some of the videos of the damage. Like we can see, firstly, initially, when there was a fire, this video was published in relation to the damage, significant damage. Then there was actually a video being published about the scale of the destruction in the area and the Israeli rescue teams trying to evacuate and get some people out of the location. Let me just share that video with you shortly. Yes, that is the actual video. These are the rescue operations.
קדימה, משימה חשובה, ביצוע סריקות. קדימה. ביצוע סריקות מהירות בכל הנקודות לדווח. קדימה, משימה חשובה, ביצוע סריקות.
As we can see, absolute disaster from one missile only. All right. So what did Iran target then? What was it that Iran targeted in this attack? And why did they target this location? And of course, we'll share more videos as well about the damage because more videos are coming up too.
Mahmoud OD.
According to multiple reports and monitoring online, this was the area that was attacked, this particular area in the Israeli Dimona. Okay. How far is it from the Israeli Dimona nuclear facility? It's approximately 12 kilometers away from the Dimona nuclear facility, that location that they targeted. Okay, well, you may ask then, why did they not target the Dimona facility? Because Iran works on a basis of calculated responses. Everything is calculated from an Iranian perspective. They have the capacity to land missiles on the Dimona nuclear facility. And this has just proven how lethal and how destructive such an attack could be. So why Dimona then and not the Dimona nuclear facility too? Well, we need to understand that if the Dimona nuclear facility...
This is letting Israel and the U.S. know, if they even think about hitting Tehran or any one of them cities with a nuclear weapon, they will absolutely hit that reactor. They can hit it. They can send 100 missiles at it, devastate it. There's nothing they can do. And people will have to evacuate Israel immediately.
Houses, and there's a research center too, houses Israel's ambiguous and very secretive nuclear program. That means Dimona would house many of the people who work on the project of Israel. They wouldn't be living too far because they would need to work there on a regular basis, and they're not going to live in the facility itself. However, despite the fact that we still haven't had a direct clarification on what it was that Iran targeted, chances are it's an area that has bunkers around it. So it could either be used to house certain things or include materials or personnel that are linked with Iran's nuclear program. We've had a couple of reports about this. One of them was in the Al Mayadeen network. Let's go through some of the details that they published on their website about this attack, because it was also, of course, confirmed by the Israeli media. They said that dozens injured as a result of Iranian missiles falling on Dimona in the southern occupied territories. Israeli media reported that several locations of the city of Dimona were hit by Iranian missiles. So what we saw was one of them, according to the Israeli reports. However, judging by the videos that we saw, these were most likely the same videos of the same landing because of the interception attempts and the speed of the missile and the explosion. So if there were other missiles landing, what I showed you probably was relating only to one of these missiles. Now, the Israeli media reported that multiple locations were attacked. They were hit by Iranian missiles, noting that there are suspected people trapped inside. This is where we were speaking about, potentially targeting a bunker where some people involved in Israel's nuclear program are in, or potentially Israeli officials too. The Israeli media said that the damage is a result of rockets falling during the latest salvo. Israeli media also confirmed that in addition to the collapse of buildings, a gas tank in the area was damaged, warning of a possible leak. And we saw, by the way, verified a video of that, people saying that there is a gas leak and that they need to get out of the location. Of course, they said that sirens were heard multiple times throughout the day. And Israel is saying that also they have casualties, they have people who were killed. Now, the Iranian television revealed that Iran targeted Dimona after the enemy's attack on the Natanz nuclear facility. It said that the Dimona area is of a remarkable strategic and security importance as it contains nuclear facility known as the Negev Nuclear Research Center, making it one of the most sensitive areas in the occupation security structure. Dimona also gains importance from the location of the Negev region in the south, which gives it geographical and strategic depth and places it within areas linked to vital infrastructure and facilities of a military and security nature. The IRGC confirmed that in the statement of the 72nd wave of missiles that operations will continue at an escalating pace, stressing that the new strikes come with an escalating course aimed at weakening the enemy's capabilities and forcing it to retreat. Iran continues to target U.S. military bases in the region and deep within the occupied entity in waves of bombing in Operation True Promise 2 in response to, of course, the American-Israeli aggression. Okay, so Iran is sending a message by targeting the nuclear hub of Israel, and we've had more sirens in that location just now. So are they going to eventually target the nuclear facility itself and potentially risk a nuclear leak? Because this is where things start to get, complicated in terms of calculations. Because if we talk about Israel's nuclear facility, then they might have some nukes there. I mean, they might have something there. Of course, there's another argument that, well, this actual location might not necessarily have Israel's nukes. It could just be a front, and Israel's nuclear weapons would be in other locations too. But what's for sure is this area is very sensitive, and not many people, of course, are allowed near it. And the destruction from the recent salvo of Iran against that location, area called the Arad in the occupied Negev area, was very substantial. There were more videos coming out about the damage in that area, as we can see in these videos too. And Israel confirmed that several buildings were down due to this missile. So what did Iran use? Iran most likely used the Khorram Shahar 4 or Khaybar missile in that attack because it has the capacity to carry the largest warhead of Iran, up to 2 tons of TNT on a missile. And from the attack, from the blast of the attack, we can clearly see that we're not talking about an average missile here. It's undoubtedly over 1 ton, with a warhead over 1 ton, because Iran said that we will be launching nothing less than 1 ton on Israel. But the after effects, the impact, the sound, I mean, if you have another look at this landing in particular, it really depicts exactly how the impact was.
Whoa. 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 Abba. Whoa. Whoa. Abba. This. Whoa. 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 Whoa.
So it's not a joke, this missile that Iran landed. We're talking about a very, very heavy missile coming from Iran in one of the recent waves that they launched. It was most likely during the 72nd wave of Iran. And they targeted, of course, Israel and multiple US bases in that location. Right now, misinformation spreads faster than facts, especially on the most
Welcome to Geopolitical Trends, where truth matters. A single missile in a desert reactor and a radioactive cloud that could drift from Jerusalem to Cairo in a matter of few hours. And Iran just threatened to make this a reality. And at the same time, military and geopolitical analysts, experts for that matter, say that Israel defenses may not be enough to stop it. And we've been seeing, so Israel so far has never officially admitted the existence of Dimona, which is the nuclear facility. The US has looked the other way for almost 60 years. We turned a blind eye on that. But Iran just put a name to the target the world wasn't supposed to talk about. And now the secret may be the most dangerous place on earth. Because so far, Iran's missiles are still coming in the air to Tel Aviv. And I'm going to share some clips with you on updates. The US and Israel are pushing. Of course, they're still hoping for regime change. And that ain't going to happen. And Tehran just issued now this particular threat, unlike anything that we have heard in the last 75 years in the Middle East conflicts, not just between US and Iran or Israel and Iran, in the Middle East conflicts. Target Dimona or Iran will. This is where the major of this particular development, why it is crucial. And I had to wait a day and a half to ensure the accuracy of the information. Let me just say off the bat, the Dimona nuclear power plant right here has not been attacked. What has been attacked is the surrounding vicinity around it. There is a reason and justification for that. That gives me two ideas. One is that Iran has the exact coordinate as to where it wants those missiles to land. And second, that's a loud and clear message is sending to Israel, given what's going on in Tel Aviv and with the recent bombing of last night. And I'm going to show you a clip of the Haifa airport. Of Haifa port. And that's exactly what I'm going to be doing, the translation for you from a clip in the Arabic language. And I tried to confirm that, and I confirmed it from another network, Al Jazeera. Both these news outlets confirmed the same story. I checked even a third one, and I found information that corroborate what was stated into this. So this is what I'm going to be covering for you in this particular analysis. This is a fast-moving and significant development, to say the least. So Iran now officially has threatened to target the Israeli nuclear site of Dimona if, this is the big condition, US and Israel really move forward with this so-called regime change of the Islamic Republic. I don't believe they will succeed, meaning the US and Israel. There is no way. Like I said yesterday in the live stream, when I wrote my Iran book, I had to do a deep dive into the structure of the Iranian government. 7 layers. Yeah, 7 layers for every top official. That's how this succession is going to go. So if the US think it's just going to decapitate, let's say, the top tier of that leadership and it will be over, no, we're mistaken. And this is exactly what the Iran official news agency confirmed, and citing a military official within the Iranian apparatus. And by the way, this wasn't just disclosed inside Iran. Even the Times of Israel confirmed the story. And we all know Israel has penetrated Iran when it comes down to the intelligence apparatus. I mean, Iran will have to do a major purge once the dust settles on this. You can't trust whatever. But the Times of Israel confirmed this story. And the official, the Iranian one, stated that final effective missiles will target the Dimona nuclear reactor and all regional energy infrastructure, end quote. He added, this individual who was to remain anonymous, and I quote, "This is a scenario we have already prepared for," end of quote. This one was concluded or disclosed by Anadolu agency, and I'm going to put the link for you. So this way, you know the sources of where this information is coming. Now, the idea of understanding these developments, because here is one thing you need to understand. As of 48 hours ago, Iran has entered into deployment Hajj Qasim, either Hajj Qasim or Sayyid Nasrallah missile. This is new types of missile. And I am waiting to confirm certain aspects before I'll do an update for you. I don't like to get ahead of myself for this. This is how I wanted to keep it for you. So what I'm going to share with you, first of all, short clip, very short, to highlight to you what an Iranian commander has been saying. So let me share the link with you here. Share the screen rather, not the link. Then I'll do the translation for you. It is very short because that's not the main one I am going to be doing for you here. So let's take a look here. All right, the one where you're looking at, his name is Mujtaba. His name also is Mujtaba. He's a military commander. And the anchor, actually, as a matter of fact, I'm going to let you listen to it and I translate it.
كانت هناك تصريحات من قبل أحد المسؤولين بأنكم ستقومون بقصف مفاعل ديمونة بحال إسقاط النظام أو محاولة إسقاط النظام. ألا يعني ذلك تهديد المنطقة بكاملها بحرب نووية؟
إيران ليس مكتوف الأيدي مقابل مؤامرات الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية وأيضا الكيان القاصف الإسرائيلي. لديها كل الخيارات. أعتقد في هذه المرحلة الملف مفتوح وكل ما يريده إيران على طاولة.
Basically what he said, and by the way, that's Iran representative in Egypt. I had to track who this individual is, and he was not from Iran. He was, I mean, he's Iranian, but he was in Egypt when that statement was made. Here is what he said. When the anchor asked, well, Sayyid Mujtaba, there were statements made by an official, that's a reference to what I said earlier, suggesting that you would strike the Daimona reactor in the event of or an attempt at the overthrow of the regime. Does this not amount to threatening the entire region with a nuclear war? His response was, Iran will not stand idly by in the face of conspiracies by the United States of America, as well as the Israeli entity. It possesses every option. I believe what at this stage, the file remains open and everything Iran deems necessary is on the table. This is what I need you to understand. The words are measured. And on this, against this backdrop, two things happened, which one I'm going to be talking about today, the targeting of Haifa airport. But the other one, it was the targeting of the electricity inside Israel. The city was a complete blackout. We haven't heard about it here. Of course, my country is not going to disclose. If you only know the story of how this war started on part of the US and how Donald Trump was played by Benjamin Netanyahu and his supporters inside. So the blame, in my opinion, as an American, is not just on Israel. It's on the American officials that allow this to happen. Because you ask yourself, how come a country of 9 million people is controlling a country of 350 million? Israel is the size of New Jersey. And yet it has most power over Washington. That is what's important to understand. Let us move on with this. So what is Daimona facility? A lot of people do not know about it. They might have heard about it, but rest assured, what I can share with you, of course, not the classified side, I can't. What I can share with you is that the Daimona has always been one of the way for Israel to use PSYOPs regarding this particular site as the nuclear aspect. The nukes might not even be at Daimona to begin with, in addition to other types of massive destructive types of weapons. And that it's on the classified side. And I just want you to understand this. And I'm going to share what is the Daimona, officially known as the Shimon Peres Negev Nuclear Research Center. That is the official known about it. And is commonly referred as the Daimona reactor. The facility is considered the most, some sort of important part of Israeli nuclear capabilities. The Daimona reactor, or the facility that is entered into operation around 1963. That's how far back. Now you can think about why JFK was taken out around the same time later on. Because the JFK, it was one of the aspects among many, was his refusal to allow Israel to go ahead and acquire the nuclear stuff. It took him out. And here is one thing about the Daimona facility. It is reported of a capacity, and this is just what's reported, of about 26 megawatts. So the construction of this particular facility started in 1958. And guess who helped them secretly? It wasn't the US. The US played a role into that. But who really helped them behind the scenes secretly? It was France. Yes, France that did that. So when American officials asked about the sites, as a matter of fact, Americans didn't know, they found out later. So it was France behind the scenes that did that. So when the Americans found out about the sites, Israeli officials initially described it as a textile factory. And by 1967, Israel had assembled its first nuclear devices. So that is what, so according to the record, at least what is made public, the reactor is described as capable of producing around 9 kilograms of plutonium annually. which is a good amount to begin with. An amount considered sufficient, in my opinion, for one nuclear bomb. So plutonium reacted, or extracted, I'm sorry, from the spent fuel is separated in a specialized facilities and later used in a nuclear warhead. That is why what I want you to understand, the Daimona.
I'm not really a cupcake, but I am super baked, thanks to Mood Can.
Mood is third-party tech. Because the information has been over the years and decades. That's why the Muslim world in the Middle East or West Asia have always been scared, and they are very like a sheep. Anyway, the Muslim world. Let's not make, no offense to whatever, but I state the facts. Is the fear that crippled those Muslim countries in the region. And Israel played on that all for the last 7 decades or so. And that is why, here is the thing, the airspace, one thing I need you to understand. As a matter of fact, to my knowledge, and this is not based on classified information, usually you can draw the line between what I share with you and what could be the potential exact number. But I'll let you reach that conclusion. The information that is released publicly is that the reactor has produced about 800 kilograms of weapons-grade plutonium over 60 years of continuous operation. So I'll let you draw your own conclusion about the real number. So, and the airspace for over Daimona is permanently closed. That airspace is always closed. No. I mean, they have a major sort of, as one who spent time in the Middle East, I can tell you. But now, usually no plane will get close or whatever. But now, with Iran massive missiles, it became clear that Iran has the capability to blow it up if they choose to do so. I don't think so Iran will go that far for now, because they understand the reaction of, not the reaction from the US. No. The nuclear fallout. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to take you back to 1967. During the 1967 Six-Day War, Israeli defense shut down one of their own fighter jets when it inadvertently flew over the facility. That's what I need you to understand. Why am I bringing this up? I am bringing this up to bring back what I shared with you yesterday. Remember when I did the clip and translated for you about when I saw it in Arabic language? What I wanted to share with you, and I'm going to share the screen for one specific information only. Let me share the screen. It's just going to show you. I want to show you because I want you to see it with your own eyes. If you look at closely here to the date right there before that blue line, what date is that? That's March 18, 2026. I did the video for you yesterday regarding this, which was confirmed on the day before. That is my point. I want you to understand the chain of events according to the dates. So when the Iranian sort of had a blackout over certain locations in Israel, and with the targeting of Haifa port last night, that's exactly what happened. So I just wanted to put that. Now, here is the thing. Those devastating Iranian strikes, because it I can't even say the word, incinerated the tanks at Haifa port. And that it's causing damage up to my knowledge, and confirmed it, to about 26 million shekels, which is the equivalency of $2 million, which is a lot for Israel. So reports coming out of that particular event, which happened yesterday, March 19th, indicated that the Iranian missile strike targeted the Haifa Bay area in Israel, causing damage to oil refinery infrastructure and setting vehicles on fire. And this, by the way, wasn't just according to leaked videos from Israel. The Israeli government had no other choice but to confirm it. And this is according to the Israeli officials and the media. Because you can't hide They've been trying to hide the massive destructions in Tel Aviv and Haifa and Shemesh and other parts, especially now. You have two fronts, one from Hezbollah and one from Iran. We are not even talking the Houthis yet. Houthis have not even started yet. There is a reason for that, and that will be a conversation for another day. And this is what the attack by Iran hit the Bazan. It's called Bazan Group Oil Refineries in Haifa. That is exactly. So I'm going to share the video with you, and I'll do the translation for you as we have been doing for the last videos, because that's to me the best way that I am able to. And by the way, just to let you know, I do check these videos. This is not a. I know someone put a comment, and I read. It was Dr. O. Those are an AI stuff. Respectfully, I disagree with you. I will not put this for our community, because that's not what I do. If I am to report, I report the facts to you to the best of my abilities. I check and double check to ensure. So let us take a listen here. And it's not that long, but it is long enough that I gotta move on this quickly here. And once again, this is from the same outlet that I did the two previous video called Ar-Ru'ya, or the vision, if you are to translate it that way. Let's make this one here, and I'm going to start.
إذا الآن نستطيع تأكيد استهداف محيط ديمونا الاستراتيجي في صحراء النقب جنوب إسرائيل.
ونستطيع القول أن الخط الأحمر الذي لم يجرؤ أحد على لمسه منذ عام 1948 إيران الليلة تضعه تحت طائلة النيران المباشرة. نحن هنا نتحدث عن هلع عالمي وليس إسرائيليا فحسب، جراء هذا الاستهداف الإيراني العنيف الذي وضع الحصانة النووية للكيان على المحك.
What it's basically saying is that we can now confirm that the strategic, here is the key, the strategic vicinity of Dimona, located in the Negev desert of southern Israel, has indeed been targeted. We can state that the red line, which no one has dared to cross since 1948, has, as of tonight, been placed by Iran under the threat of direct fire. We are witnessing here a state of global panic, not merely Israeli, triggered by this violent Iranian strike, which has put the entity, meaning Israel's in nuclear immunity, to the ultimate test.
بالضبط آلاء، نحن أمام تجسيد حقيقي للخطر الوجودي، وسنرى في الساعات القادمة كيف سيتعامل العالم وخاصة واشنطن مع هذا الاستهداف. إذا استهداف محيط مركز أبحاث النقب النووي والمعروف بمفاعل ديمونا هو العنوان الأبرز في مساء اليوم الأحد 15 من مارس 2026، ونحن في اليوم 16 من هذه المواجهة المفتوحة. تأتي هذه الضربة ضمن الموجة 53 التي أطلقتها طهران لتعلن رسميا دخول الصراع مرحلة لا عودة.
What he's saying is that precisely, Ala, we are facing a tangible manifestation of an existential threat. In the coming hours, we shall see how the world, and Washington in particular, responds to this strike. As a result, the targeting of the area surrounding the Negev Nuclear Research Center, commonly known as the Dimona reactor, stands as the dominant headline this Sunday evening on March 15th. We are now on the 16th day of this open-ended confrontation. This strike constitutes the 53rd wave launched by Tehran, officially signaling that the conflict has entered a point of no return.
التقارير الميدانية تشير إلى سقوط سلسلة من الصواريخ البالستية الإيرانية بعيدة المدى في المنطقة المحيطة بالمجمع النووي، وهو ما يعد الاختراق الدفاعي الأكثر خطورة في تاريخ المنشآت الاستراتيجية للكيان. وعلى الرغم من أن الضربة تركزت في المنشآت الملحقة وأنظمة الحماية الخارجية، إلا أن الرسالة السياسية والعسكرية وصلت قبل الصواريخ نفسها.
Field report indicate that a barrage of long-range Iranian ballistic missiles, to my knowledge, it was Khorramshahr 4 was used into this, has impacted the zone surrounding the nuclear complex, an event regarded as the most critical defensive breach in the history of the entity's strategic installations. Although the strike focused primarily on auxiliary facilities and external defense systems, its political and military message arrived even before the missiles themselves.
المظلة النووية التي كانت تعتبر بوليصة التأمين الأخيرة باتت الليلة مكشوفة ومستهدفة بجرأة غير مسبوقة. الدوائر الدبلوماسية في واشنطن والعواصم الكبرى الآن بانتظار تقييم الأضرار في المفاعل الذي يمثل قدس أقداس العقيدة الأمنية الإسرائيلية.
The nuclear umbrella, once considered the ultimate insurance policy, now stands exposed and targeted with unprecedented audacity. Diplomatic circles in Washington and other major capitals are currently awaiting an assessment of the damage to the reactor, a site representing the holy of holies of Israeli security doctrine.
فنحن هنا مشاهدينا لا نرصد مجرد قصف لموقع عسكري، بل نرصد انهيارا للمحرمات الاستراتيجية التي حكمت المنطقة ل7 عقود.
For what we are observing here, viewers, is not merely the bombardment of a military site. Rather, we are witnessing the collapse of the strategic taboos that have governed this region for 7 decades.
يبدو أن مظلة الغموض التي احتمت خلفها إسرائيل لعقود قد مزقت الليلة وتحت وطأة المعادن الإيرانية المتفجرة. نحن نتحدث عن المجمع الذي يضم قلب البرنامج النووي الإسرائيلي والذي يحتوي على مفاعل نووي مصنع بمساعدة فرنسية في الخمسينات.
Indeed, it appears that the umbrella of ambiguity behind which Israel has taken shelter for decades, the night has been shattered and under the impact of Iranian explosive munitions. We are speaking of the complex that houses the very heart of the Israeli nuclear program, a nuclear reactor constructed with the French assistance in the 1950s.
ومنذ ذلك الحين وإسرائيل تتبنى سياسة الغموض النووي، فهي لا تعترف بامتلاكها أسلحة نووية ولا تنفي ذلك، ولكن ديمونا ظل دائما هو العمود الفقري لهذا الغموض، واستهداف محيطه الليلة يعني بوضوح تحويل هذا الغموض إلى تهديد علني.
Since that time, Israel has maintained the policy of a nuclear ambiguity, neither confirming nor denying its possession of nuclear weapons. Yet, Dimona has always remained the backbone of this ambiguity. Thus, the targeting of its vicinity tonight clearly signifies the transformation of this ambiguity into an overt and direct threat.
ومباشر.
وللمشاهد أن يتخيل حجم هذا الخرق، فنحن نتحدث عن المجمع الأكثر تحصينا في العالم، حيث يحيط به نظام دفاع جوي متعدد الطبقات ومنطقة حظر طيران صارمة وأجهزة رصد زلزالي وتشعيعي متطورة جدا. لذلك فإن أي استهداف لمحيطه لا يقرأ كضربة عسكرية عابرة، بل كرسالة رعب إشعاعي محتمل، وهو ما يجعل.
Viewers are invited to imagine the magnitude of this breach. We are, after all, speaking of the most heavily fortified complex in the world, a site encircled by a multi-layer air defense systems, a strict no-fly zone, and a highly sophisticated seismic and radiation monitoring equipment. Consequently, any targeting of its perimeter is not interpreted merely as a fleeting military strike, but rather as the delivery of a message of a potential radiological terror.
هذا الحدث الأكثر تأثيراً على الرأي العام العالمي وعلى مراكز القرار التي تدرك الآن أن قواعد اللعبة قد كسرت بالكامل، والصندوق الأسود لإسرائيل بات في مرمى النيران. مشاهدينا نتوقف عند هذه.
This renders the event profoundly impactful upon global public opinion and decision-making centers, institutions that now realize the rules of the games. The rules of the game have been completely shattered, and that Israel's black box now lies squarely within the line of fire.
الصور الواردة من تل أبيب والتي يتداولها مستوطنون في هذه اللحظات، حيث تظهر الصور بشكل لا يقبل التأويل اختراق صاروخ باليستي إيراني لسقف أحد الملاجئ الحصينة وصولا إلى عمق المنطقة المأهولة.
And these viewers, we pause to examine these images arriving from Tel Aviv, currently being circulated among settlers, which unequivocally depict an Iranian ballistic missile penetrating the roof of a fortified shelters, reaching deep into the subterranean inhabited zone.
تحت الأرض. يأتي هذا بالتزامن مع ما نشره الإعلام الحربي التابع للحرس الثوري الإيراني، والذي بث مشاهد توثق لحظة إطلاق دفعات من الصواريخ الباليستية ضمن الموجة 53، وهي صواريخ تبدو أنها مزودة برؤوس خارقة للتحصينات مصممة خصيصا للتعامل مع أهداف تحت سطح الأرض.
This development coincides with material released by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard war media arms, which broadcast footage documenting the launch of volleys of ballistic missiles as part of the 53rd wave of the attacks, missiles that appear to be equipped with bunker buster warheads specifically designed to neutralize subterranean targets.
هذه الصور تعني أن مفهوم الأمان قد انتهى تماما الليلة، فإذا كان الإسمنت المسلح لم يعد يقي من النيران، فهذا يعني أن المواطن الإسرائيلي أو المستوطن بات يبحث عن ملجأ من الملجأ نفسه.
These images signify that as of tonight, the very concept of security has utterly collapsed, for its reinforced concrete no longer offers protection against incoming fire. It implies that the Israeli citizen or settler is now left searching for a shelter within the shelter itself.
بالفعل، وهذا التحول في القدرة التدميرية للصواريخ الإيرانية يضع الجبهة الداخلية في مواجهة واقع جديد، حيث لم تعد جدران الملاجئ تشكل عائقا أمام حمم الموجة 53 التي أعادت تعريف المناطق الآمنة في إسرائيل.
Indeed, this transformation in the destructive capability of Iranian missiles confronts the home front with a new reality, one in which the walls of shelters no longer serve as the barrier against the fiery onslaught of this 53rd wave, which has effectively redefined what constitutes a safe zone within Israel.
وبالعودة إلى ديمونا، نذكر مشاهدينا نحن لا نتحدث الليلة عن مجرد إحداثيات جغرافية طالتها النيران، بل نتحدث عن تفكيك العقيدة النووية لإسرائيل في يوم المواجهة 16.
Returning to Dimona, we remind our viewers that tonight we are not merely discussing geographic coordinates struck by fire. Rather, we are discussing the fundamental challenge to Israel's nuclear doctrine on the 16th day of the confrontation.
فانتقال العمليات الصاروخية إلى محيط ديمونا ووضع المنشآت السيادية للدولة تحت الضغط المباشر. وهذا المسار الجديد للحرب المفتوحة يعني أن بنك الأهداف الإيراني تجاوز الخطوط الدفاعية التقليدية وانتقل إلى مرحلة استهداف مراكز الثقل الاستراتيجي التي بقيت محيدة لعقود.
The shift of missile operations to the vicinity of Dimona has placed the state's sovereign facilities under direct pressure. This new trajectory of open warfare signifies that Iran's target bank has bypassed traditional defensive lines, advancing to a phase of targeting strategic centers of gravity, sites that had remained off limits for decades.
ووصول صواريخ الموجة 53 إلى تخوم مفاعل النقب يفرض واقعا عسكريا جديدا تتراجع فيه فكرة المناطق المحصنة ويجعل من العمق النووي جزءا من معادلة الاشتباك اليومية، وهو ما سيغير حتما حسابات الردع المتبادل في الساعات القادمة.
The arrival of this 53rd wave missiles at the very doorstep of the Negev reactor imposes a new military reality, one in which the concept of fortified zones is rendered obsolete, and in which the nation's nuclear core becomes an integral part of the daily equation of engagement. This development is bound to fundamentally alter the calculus of mutual deterrence in the hours ahead.
رائد، بعد وصول الصواريخ واختراقها لأسقف الملاجئ الحصينة، لم يعد السؤال اليوم هو ماذا ستقصف إيران غدا، بل السؤال الحقيقي هو ماذا بقي لدى إسرائيل لتقول إنها لا تزال تملك حماية لسيادتها.
وبينما
Right, following the arrival of these missiles and their penetration of reinforced roofs or even the most fortified shelters, the question today is no longer simply what will Iran strike tomorrow? Rather, the true question is what remains of Israel's defenses that would allow it to claim it still possesses the means to protect its own sovereignty.
تتركز الأنظار على صحراء النقب، لا يبدو المشهد في الشمال أقل حدة، حيث عاش مستوطنو الجليل ليلة صعبة تحت وابل من الصواريخ المنطلقة من لبنان، والتي طالت مستوطنة حتسور برشقات غير منقطعة لم تمنح السكان حتى الثواني القليلة للوصول إلى المناطق المحصنة.
And while all eyes remain fixed on the Negev desert, the scene in the north appears no less intense. Residents of the Galilee settlements endured a harrowing night beneath a barrage of missiles launched from Lebanon, an onslaught that struck the settlements of Hadzor in ceaseless volleys, denying residents even the precious few seconds needed to reach their fortified shelters.
وبينما تتحدث القيادة عن زئير الأسد، يصرخ المستوطنون هناك بأن الرئيس عار وأن الدولة تخلت عنهم تماما تحت حمم الصواريخ التي باتت تخترق غرف نومهم.
While the leadership speaks of the lion roar, the settlers on the ground cry out in anguish, declaring that the president is a disgrace and that the state has utterly abandoned them as they cower beneath a rain of missiles that now pierce directly into their very bedrooms.
وبالفعل آلاء التقارير تشير إلى استخدام صواريخ ذات رؤوس تشظية مصممة لزيادة القوة التدميرية، حيث تسببت في أضرار جسيمة في الممتلكات والمنشآت السكنية. تزامن هذا التصعيد في الشمال مع استهداف محيط ديمونا في الجنوب يضع المؤسسة العسكرية أمام واقع تعدد الجبهات المفتوحة، حيث تجد
Indeed, reports indicate the deployment of missiles possessing fragmentation warheads designed to maximize destructive power have inflicted severe damage upon property and residential structures. This escalation in the north, occurring simultaneously with the targeting of the area surrounding Dimona in the south, confronts the military establishment with the reality of a multiple open fronts.
تجد الدفاعات الجوية نفسها مشتتة بين الصواريخ البالستية العابرة والمسيرات الانتحارية التي باتت تجوب سماء الجليل بحرية تامة، مما يعزز القناعة بأن السيطرة الميدانية بدأت تنزلق من يد الكيان في اليوم السادس عشر.
Air defenses now find themselves stretched thin, caught between incoming ballistic missiles and suicide drones that have begun to roam the skies over Galilee with complete impunity. This reinforces the growing conviction that field control is beginning to slip from the entity, from Israel's grasp as we enter the 16th day.
رائد، في النهاية مركز أبحاث النقب النووي لم يكن مجرد منشأة علمية، بل كان الرمز الذي قامت عليه عقيدة البقاء لهذا الكيان طوال 7 عقود. الليلة ومع وصول النيران إلى محيط هذا المجمع الاستراتيجي سقطت تلك الهيبة التي لا تمس. نحن لا
Ultimately, the Negev Nuclear Research Center was never merely a scientific facility. It was the very symbol upon which this entity's doctrine of survival has rested for 7 decades. Tonight, with hostilities reaching the immediate vicinity of this strategic complex, that once untouchable aura of invincibility has crumbled.
نتحدث فقط عن صواريخ إيرانية طالت صحراء النقب، بل نتحدث عن انكشاف الستر عن الصندوق الأسود الذي ظنوا أنه بعيد عن متناول اليد.
We are not speaking merely of Iranian missiles striking the Negev desert. Rather, we are speaking of the lifting of the veil, the exposure of the black box that they believed lay forever beyond reach.
الحقيقة المرة التي يدركها القادة في تل أبيب الآن هي أن ديمونا التي كانت تحميهم في الماضي أصبحت هي المصدر الأول للقلق الوجودي. مستمرون معكم.
The bitter truth that leaders in Tel Aviv now realize is that Daimona, which once served as their protector, had itself become the primary source of their existential anxiety.
مشاهدينا في رصد تداعيات هذه الليلة الاستثنائية لليوم 16 من الحرب. شكرا لطيب المتابعة وإلى اللقاء.
Basically what she's saying, we continue to monitor the repercussions of this extraordinary night, the 16th day of the war, here with you, our viewers. Thank you for watching, and until next time. My point is all this, it highlights the importance of this to understand. Of course, we're not going to see the coverage of it right here in the US. I've been watching, there's nothing that's going to disclose, and I find it my responsibility for the community to share this specific type of information. If the truth matters to you, hit like, subscribe, and tap that bell. No spin, no agenda, just the stories they don't want you to know. Don't watch from the sideline. Be part of the movement. Your support keeps the truth alive. Thank you. Indeed, thank you for your support, and I appreciate you subscribing so we can reach a large number of people around the world for the sake of the truth. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to share some clips. Those are brief, very brief, and do a quick conclusion for you because I want to just get to the point of all this. So the first one I'm going to share with you, let me upload it here onto the screen, and I'll share it with you here. Okay. All right. Now, this, I'm not playing it in its entirety because it's long. Well, I'm going to be playing one particular clip for you to hear exactly what's being said regarding these aspects here. All right, let's take a listen.
Against Iran, developments in the Middle East, developments in the Gulf, developments really across the world. Noor O'Day is southwest of Ramallah in the occupied West Bank, monitoring developments in Israel. Noor, there was a strike on the Israeli city of Haifa. Do you know what was hit?
Well, Sarah, we know now after the Israeli military censor also cleared the information that the oil refinery in the Haifa Bay was hit, as was the electricity company. There are some power outages reported in the Haifa area. The Israeli Minister of Energy has said that work to repair that damage is ongoing, and there were messages of reassurance to the public that there are no dangers of leaks, petrochemical leaks from that hit to the oil refinery. But this is a significant development, if you will, one that was considered remote even earlier on in the day, when we heard from a member of the Israeli Security Cabinet who was basically mocking countries that were being targeted now by Iran and saying that basically that Israel didn't have oil resources and gas resources to speak of, and that Iran wasn't targeting them. Haifa port is very strategic for Israel. It is home to Israel's Navy, to the nuclear submarines, to the oil refineries and the petrochemicals, and now it has been hit. It is not clear whether this was a shrapnel, an interceptor shrapnel, or Iranian missile shrapnel, but the damage is unmistakable.
Okay, I'm going to stop right there because I just wanted to do this briefly. And speaking of that, that brings me to one particular event that took place in Qatar when one of the gas facilities been targeted. I checked that the targeting was not by Iran. It was not Iran. I repeat this. It was not Iran that targeted the energy or gas facilities. I found out that it was Israel. That's what. I mean, I can see the logic for something like that one. And the same arguments can be made about what is going on right here. So now let me play another clip here for you. And this one also is very, very short. Then we'll go from there before I'll do my conclusion for you. Now, this clip that I'm going to share with you, I couldn't find, and I'll disclose it, couldn't find exactly if this one pertained to the Haifa attack or it was something else. But I wanted to share it with you just for you to see, and of course, you reach your own conclusion on this, and this only for the sake of transparency, no more, no less. And it says right there in Arabic, Tel Aviv, Qasb Saroukhi, Tel Aviv being hit by a missile. All right, I'm going to stop it right there because I just want to show you a few things. And once again, is the idea that certain clips have been coming from within Israel. Remember, people inside Israel are now getting very pissed. It's because, I mean, let's not, let's not get emotional on this stuff. It's the government. Now they're dragging the people who really want no war of this. They don't want any war with Iran. And like for us here in the US, we're saying that the reports that's been circulating inside the government, oh, they're going to attack the US. And no, it was no indications from an intelligence perspective that Iran had any intentions whatsoever to attack the homeland. We fabricated the stories like we did in the Iraq war back in 2003. And the last one I want to share with you is this clip here. And once again, I just want to highlight a few things for you to see. And this one, this particular clip here pertain to the attack on Haifa port. I want to bring you, by the way, I give credit to the previous clip to Roya, and the second clip, I give credit to Al Jazeera. And this one here, I give credit to Vertex. That's their clip, and I wanted to share it with you. Take a listen here, please.
9 times in a single day, missiles. Iran hits Haifa's oil refinery. 9 times in a single day, missiles rained on Israel. Pipelines struck, power out across entire suburbs, warnings of dangerous substance leaks. Iran's foreign minister says it plainly. Zero restraint if our infrastructure is touched again. Israel had already touched it. The war for oil and gas has a new front, and it runs straight through Haifa Bay.
Okay, I'm gonna stop this because it has the soundtrack. I don't like to play this, but to highlight to you once again, the idea that the United States told Israel, do not attack the energy facilities and so forth. And what did Israel do? They went ahead and attack. And that tells you right there the story about who's really in charge here. So it's sad that, you know, some of us, we're talking about what's pragmatic here. What's pragmatic here? That's all it is. Now, what would this strike mean on Daimona? Hypothetically, if we are to go forward, if we are to move forward with this question, because it's worth asking. The building, the Daimona, let me share the picture once again, just to put it in perspective here. The picture sits about 25 kilometers from the Jordanian border, 75 kilometers from Egypt, and 85 kilometers from Jerusalem. Meaning what? It means that hypothetically, if it is struck, which I don't foresee at this time, if it is struck, the radiological release will not be contained to Israel alone and could be a regional catastrophe. Although strikes can be set back a nuclear program and destroy the key infrastructures, the military force cannot eliminate sort of what might happen next. And this is why we are thinking about, oh, we're going to send our Marines. Yeah, President, you sending them to their grave, basically. That's what you are doing. So the bottom line is that the threat that Iran issued is being taken seriously, because now we learn Iran is not bluffing, and they have no reason to just bluff because gloves are off. Once you start decapitating, especially with assassinating the supreme leader, why would you do that? And that is one of the things that the Israelis, at least to those of us who have worked some side by side, the Israelis tend to go on their own because their targets are different from ours. Their plan is different from ours. And when you think, if they are thinking we are in this partnership, how can you say that? How can you even think that when you are operating on some different capacity that has nothing to do with our interests? Basically, they were able to manipulate Donald Trump into going to a war. And now it's too late. Too late. In any way you look at it, Iran is not backing down, and the US will not be able to sustain this for a long, long time unless the nuclear option is used. And if the nuclear option is used, you have two countries already warned the US. China, which I will be talking about this on March 23rd with Dr. Warwick Powell. We're going to be talking about this. So China issued a warning, and the Russians also issued a warning regarding this particular targeting of the energy sectors. So the bottom line to all this, the threat is, as I said, is being taken seriously. Iran has never before explicitly named Daimona as a target. I mean, to my knowledge, and again, I did the research on the country, I wrote a book about Iran, and I mentioned the Daimona in the book, but not within the context of being targeted, because I've always think of it that is off limit. Well, no more. That's why I said Iran never named Daimona as a target, but it appears designed now as a deterrent against regime change operations. So the combination of weakened sort of air defense systems from Israeli now. No. Even the US had to move the THAAD systems into, which creates other problems for us. And with Israeli imperfect now, because it's becoming clear, imperfect air defense systems means that the risk, however low, it's shrinking and it's getting closer. So the key that I want to leave you with is that the geopolitical stakes of even an attempted strike on Daimona will be extraordinarily high. So, because to Iranians, if I am to put myself in their shoes with their mindset thinking, the threat remains a core component of Iran's deterrent strategy. But that doesn't mean they're just threatening or bluffing. They will go with it. If Israel and the US, especially Israel, the US now found out, this is not a government you can just bully or intimidate. This is why we don't understand the history of as I wrote a chapter about the history of the Persian Empire, to understand the longest ever in the region, powerful at a time, and still now they proved it. So the immense defense capabilities protecting this facility in Daimona has proved now challenging, because in my opinion the direct threat highlights the severe volatility now of the ongoing West Asia or Middle East conflict. That's the only way I see it. So I hope some cool heads will prevail, but again, how can we expect that when our government is being just dragged into a war that is not ours? And the Americans are starting to pay the price for it. Gas prices is already going up. So before I forget, and I'm done here, guys, that's my analysis here. Last time when I did live stream, I kind of overlooked to say thank you to Noel for getting me super sticker. My sincere apology, Noel, for overlooking that, because I was like, I had so much in my mind. So I want to say thank you once again. And this time around, I'm going to be doing this from now on. I'm going to be sharing the like I always do. Let me share the screen here. Thank you so much for your
Take a deep breath, settle in, and let the reality of what just happened wash over you. Because the mainstream media, the Pentagon spin machine, and the washed-up generals on cable news are trying to hide the truth. But you are here, and you deserve the facts. Just days ago, the world changed.
4,000 kilometers, that's how far Iran just reached. Ballistic missiles fired at Diego Garcia.
As Iran launched 2 ballistic missiles at Diego Garcia, the joint US-UK military base located over 4,000 kilometers from Tehran.
The drastic and unprecedented escalation of West Asia war. The Iranian regime has launched multiple long-range ballistic missiles directly targeting the highly strategic US and UK joint military base at Diego Garcia in the...
Not with a whimper, but with the roar of a Khorramshahr missile launching from Iranian territory. flying over 4,000 kilometers across the open ocean and slamming into the consciousness of the United States military.
Jen Spark, give me the day off. I'm skipping work today. You should too, Stu.
In a way that nothing has since Vietnam. We are witnessing the complete and utter collapse of American strategic dominance in West Asia. And the man holding the bag, Donald Trump, has just performed the most humiliating U-turn in the history of the American presidency. Let's set the stage. For weeks, the propaganda machine in Washington and Tel Aviv has been running at full throttle. We were told Iran was isolated, that its military was degraded, that its leadership was cowering in bunkers. Donald Trump stood at podiums, his chest puffed out, declaring that he was obliterating Iran's military-industrial complex.
What did you mean by that? You said the war was militarily won in Iran. What did you mean by that?
Oh, I think we've won. We've knocked out their Navy, their Air Force. We've knocked out their anti-aircraft. We've knocked out everything. We're roaming free. From a military standpoint, all they're doing is clogging up the strait. But from a military standpoint, they're finished.
So how much longer?
Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister, played the loyal lapdog, finally giving permission for the U.S. to use the strategic Indian Ocean base at Diego Garcia to launch strikes against Iran, thinking that this little rock, thousands of miles away, was a sanctuary, a safe haven from which the empire could project power without consequence. They thought they were safe. They thought the rules of the game were fixed, but they forgot one crucial detail. Iran has been playing a much longer game, a game of patience, mathematics, and sheer ballistic ingenuity. And on the day that Starmer gave the green light, Iran responded not with a diplomatic note, but with 2 intermediate-range ballistic missiles aimed directly at Diego Garcia. The message was clear: there is no sanctuary for you, not anywhere. Before we dive into the technical brilliance of this strike, the sheer audacity of it, I need to ask you something. If you are tired of the lies, tired of the narrative that the most powerful military in the world is invincible, I need you to do something for me right now. Hit the like button, smash it. Share this video with everyone you know who is tired of the propaganda. Drop a comment, even if it's just a dot, or better yet, tell me what you think about Donald Trump running away with his pants down. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel. We are one of the last bastions of honest journalism left, and we don't take a dime from defense contractors. We rely on you. Do it now. All right, let's get into the details, because the technical specifications of this missile launch are going to make your jaw drop. The target was Diego Garcia. This is not some little outpost. This is the crown jewel of the US-UK military alliance in the Indian Ocean. It's a base that hosts B-52 bombers, nuclear submarines, and serves as a refueling hub for the entire region. The distance from Iran's coastline to this base is roughly 3,800 to 4,000 kilometers. Let me put that into perspective. For decades, the American military-industrial complex operated under the comfortable assumption that Iran's missile range was capped at 2,000 kilometers. The Iranian foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, even said last month that they had deliberately limited the range to 2,000 kilometers as a matter of policy. That was yesterday. That was the old Iran.
Let me ask you, because you have said that this was a war of choice. President Trump said one of the reasons for launching this war was that Iran, quote, already had missiles capable of hitting Europe and our bases and would soon have missiles capable of reaching America. Was Iran planning to directly attack the United States?
Well, this is not true. This is, in fact, misinformation. We have capability to produce missiles, but we have intentionally limited ourselves to below 2,000 kilometers of range because we don't want to be felt as a threat by anybody else in the world. We have not started any plan to increase the range of our missiles more than what it is right now.
However, what we saw was the unveiling of a capability that the Pentagon's top war planners insisted was years away. These weren't just any missiles. Reports indicate that Iran utilized the Khorramshahr 4 missile, a liquid-fueled medium-range ballistic missile that has been upgraded to the point of being a strategic game-changer. This missile is a marvel of engineering. It's designed to carry a massive payload, and in this instance, it is believed to have been armed with a cluster munition warhead. Think about that. A cluster warhead designed to saturate an airfield. The purpose wasn't just to hit the base. It was to make the airbase unusable, to crater the runways, to destroy the fuel depots, to scatter bomblets across the tarmac so that no F-35 could take off or land. It was a direct surgical threat to the U.S. Air Force's ability to project power from that region.
Imagine you are him, and you have a brain tumor.
One of the missiles reportedly failed mid-flight, and a U.S. Navy destroyer managed to fire an SM-3 interceptor at the second. But here's the part they don't want you to focus on. The fact that the interception happened at all, and the uncertainty surrounding it, proves that the missile came terrifyingly close to completing its mission. Even the attempt, the sheer act of launching a ballistic missile over 4,000 kilometers into the Indian Ocean, shattered the illusion of American invincibility. Now, let's talk about the trajectory and how Iran achieved this. To reach a target 4,000 kilometers away, the missile didn't fly a straight, flat line. It utilized a highly lofted trajectory, essentially throwing the warhead high into the upper atmosphere, almost to the edge of space, before letting gravity and guidance systems do the rest. This isn't just about fuel. It's about guidance, heat shielding, and the ability to command a missile over the horizon. For years, the West has been funding think tanks that insisted Iran couldn't master this. But they forgot the legacy of Hassan Tehrani Moghadam. They assassinated him in 2011, thinking they could kill the program. They thought that bombing his research facilities and killing the father of Iran's missile program would set them back decades. But the student has surpassed the teacher. The Iranian military-industrial complex has done what the Americans said was impossible. They miniaturized the guidance systems, they perfected the solid fuel boosters, and they created a weapon that can reach deep into the Indian Ocean.
با آقا نوشتم اینو گفتم انتظار شهید شهدا علف بود شهید احمد قادری گذار این کار بود سرآمد و به انتظارش پایان داده شد و یه اقتداری جمهوری اسلامی کسب کرد فقط خاص ابرقدرت هست در بخش مشکل زنگ بزنید فقط به شما این جمله رو میتونم بگم مرزی برای برد وجود ندارد و امریکایی‌ها میفهمند تهدید بر علیه جمهوری اسلامی برابر است که پاسخ متقابل خواهند دید.
And then came the statements from Tehran that must have made the walls of the Pentagon shake. Ali Khamenei, the late supreme leader, had previously limited the range of Iranian missiles out of strategic restraint.
ما یه روزی در میدان جنگ لازم مهمات ما 2 جو توپ گلوله توپ می‌تونستیم تولید کنیم. حالا الان موشک بالستیکمون از راه دور که 2000 کیلومتر دور 2000 کیلومتر بنده گفتم حالا اینا می‌خواستن برن تا 4-5 هزار کیلومتر من نگذاشتم. علاقا علتی داره علتی من مانع شدم یعنی گفتم بیشتر از 2000 کیلومتر الان نباید باشه اونا هم شکایت دارن از من گله من فلانی نمیذاره این 2000 کیلومتر نقطه زن 2000 کیلومتر چیز بسیار برجسته است اینا نقطه زن هست یعنی مثلا به فاصله 10 میل
But the Americans and the Israelis mistook that restraint for weakness. They pushed, they assassinated, they bombed, and now the leash is off. Recent reports confirm that Khamenei has lifted all limits on missile range. All limits. The implication is terrifying for the West. If Iran can hit Diego Garcia at 4,000 kilometers, what's stopping them from hitting Eastern Europe? What's stopping them from hitting the British Isles? The American narrative that they can wage a war of attrition against Iran from a safe distance is dead. It was buried in the Indian Ocean the moment that missile cleared its silo. This brings us to the extraordinary, and I mean truly pathetic, U-turn by Donald Trump. Just weeks ago, he was beating the war drum harder than anyone. He was promising to police the Strait of Hormuz, threatening to blockade Karg Island, and promising to degrade Iran's military to the point of collapse. He was so confident that he had Iran cornered. But look at him now. Days after Iran demonstrated the ability to hit Diego Garcia, Trump is backpedaling so fast he's leaving skid marks on the White House lawn. In a stunning reversal, he announced that the United States will no longer be responsible for policing the Strait of Hormuz. He said, and I quote, "The Hormuz Strait will have to be guarded and policed as necessary by other nations who use it. The United States does not." Let me translate that for you. We tried to bully Iran. They called our bluff and fired a missile at our fortress in the middle of the ocean. And now I'm taking my ball and going home because I'm scared. This is the same man who promised he would obliterate Iran. This is the same administration that sent aircraft carriers, bombers, and thousands of Marines to the region, boasting about how they were going to force Iran to its knees. But after 20 days of bombing, let's look at the results. Iran's air defense network? It's not degraded, it's functioning. Iranian leadership? Intact. Despite a history of assassinations targeting their commanders and nuclear scientists, the Iranian government is running better than ever. In fact, they are exporting more oil today than they were before this war started. They are making more money. Their economy is still standing. And the Strait of Hormuz? It's effectively closed. The most powerful military in the world is sitting there, watching tankers get stopped, watching drone attacks on refineries in Kuwait, and they are too scared to send a frigate to force it open. Why? Because they know that if they send a ship, it will be met with a swarm of missiles and drones that the Pentagon has no answer for. So, this leaves us watching Donald Trump running away with his pants down, washing his hands of the Strait of Hormuz, and pretending that he achieved his objectives. It leaves the British government scrambling to figure out why they volunteered their territory to be a target. And it leaves the world with a stark reality. Iran is now a recognized missile power with intercontinental reach. They have the Khorramshahr, they have the technology, and they have the will to use it. The farce is over. The lies about degrading Iran are exposed as the highest order of nonsense. The only thing that was degraded in this conflict was the credibility of the American military threat. And now, as we watch Trump signal a withdrawal, a full-scale retreat, we have to ask, who is going to police the waters now? The answer is no one, because no one is foolish enough to test Iran's new red lines. The rules have changed. The empire is in retreat, and the world is witnessing, in real time, the birth of a new strategic reality. Stay tuned, because this story is far from over. We are just seeing the opening salvos of a new era, one where the U.S. can no longer dictate terms from across the ocean. As we wrap up, remember to like, share, and subscribe. Keep your eyes on the horizon, and never forget
To get started though immediately with the situation. Actually, you've been targeted by a shady organization on X that had a paid partnership. Actually, they were able to get advertising for a bounty on your head. Now, I looked into this organization called Terror Alarm. It's very non-transparent, but there are those who have shown that it's Ukrainian affiliated and Israeli affiliated. Shocker there. The dangers are very real in Iran right now, but the war is also going in a very particular direction.
Yes, the post is still there and they are gathering money to do whatever it is they want to do to me. But what what else should we expect in today's world when the United States is openly supporting a Holocaust in Gaza? It's helping the Israeli regime carry out massacres in Lebanon. It's engaging in war after war against Iran, unprovoked, and it's slaughtering women and children. It targets schools, murders hundreds of little kids at an elementary school, which was not a mistake. That was the first wave of attacks. Those first targets are always well planned. Maybe, after 2-3 weeks, an officer would be under pressure to find new targets and he'd make a mistake. But this was no mistake. This was to hit where it hurts. And why should it be a mistake? They've been bombing hospitals. They've been bombing other schools. They've been bombing ambulances on highways. They've been bombing gymnasiums where young women play volleyball, and they massacred them too. They bombed stadiums. They bombed squares in Tehran. Today, it was the new year in Iran. And as people were on the street celebrating, they bombed them. They bombed demonstrations against the war and in support of the armed forces and the leader on Friday, where I was present, and they murdered a woman. They bomb protests. They bomb demonstrations, and the Western media looks away. Never in human history, I think such a thing has happened. They bombed another, a funeral in Hamadan a few days ago. Last night, they bombed a gathering of people at night, a very large gathering in Anzali City. This is the dystopia that the Western regimes have imposed on the world. So why wouldn't they target me? Why wouldn't X help them target me? But just as Iranian people are not intimidated and they stand their ground, and we saw, and you've seen footage of Iranians when on the streets demonstrating, and then missiles hit, and they stand their ground. They don't budge in Tehran and elsewhere. So how can I do anything different? We have to do what we have to do, regardless what the consequences are. And I will continue to give my opinions and say the facts until the end of the war, assuming that I'm alive. But the masks have been removed. I think across the world, across the global majority, people see what the West is. They see it's the Epstein class. They see that the Epstein class really runs everything. The media, whether it's the so-called left or the right or the liberals, the mainstream media is theirs. It belongs to the Zionists and the oligarchy, and so does the government. So that is a good thing, I think. It's a good thing that people see the reality. It's no longer, we're no longer living in an environment where many people continue to be ignorant and many others are naive and they're able to manipulate public opinion. The only people left to manipulate are, for the most part, in the West. And even that's becoming increasingly difficult.
There's lots of reports about a coming U.S. invasion of Iran. There are detailed preparations being made to deploy U.S. ground forces. There's 2 now MEUs, these Marine Expeditionary Units, coming from various parts of the world, San Diego and Japan, or Okinawa, I should say. And there's plans being considered, Professor Brian, I want your reaction to this, to blockade Karg Island to pressure the opening of the Strait of Hormuz, meaning that they would have to, of course, occupy Karg Island through a military operation.
Well, an escalation will basically mean that the oil and gas installations the infrastructure across the Persian Gulf, West Asia, and the Caucasus will be destroyed. We already saw a couple of days ago when the Israeli regime, with full coordination, attacked Iran's vital gas infrastructure. Iran struck back very hard. Iran said it will do so on day one. And it forced Trump to back down for now. He pretended that he had no idea, or he pretended that the Americans had no idea. Maybe he didn't have any idea because he's utterly ignorant. But he said that the Israeli regime will no longer do this. So he came to this recognition that the Iranians are dead serious. And the Iranians, during the last 3 weeks, they failed to stop Iranian missiles or drones. They have not touched any of their underground missile or drone bases or their underground factories that produce them. The Iranian people are resilient. They are on the streets every night. So how are they going to defeat Iran? Iran has shown it's capable, it's shown it's united, and it's shown that it's serious about its threats. That's exactly what happened. They destroyed a significant segment of the gas installations in Qatar because of those bases in that country and because Iranian vital gas infrastructure was targeted. So Trump knows Iran is serious. If they bring in troops, that escalation will bring about much greater destruction. It will fail ultimately. The United States will fail in this war. The Israeli regime will fail in this war. The longer it lasts, the worse it is going to be for the global economy. And I think it is going to be catastrophic for the American people.
Yeah.
I mean, Iranians will suffer, but we are victims. We're defending ourselves. This is a war for survival, and we will make sure that our enemy is defeated.
What explains the obsession with Karg Island, Professor Morandi? The Trump administration, the Western mainstream media, they talk about it as a, the crown jewel of Iran's oil exporting. They talk about it as almost like a checkmate. If the United States occupies Karg Island, if it takes it over, then the Strait of Hormuz will have to reopen because Iran will no longer be able to exert leverage over this a key waterway. What's your reaction to this? Because it's a very treacherous and perilous potential operation. It will come with losses, but at the same time, it seems that the Trump administration is saying that the strategic importance of Karg Island trumps, for lack of a better term, any other considerations.
It's a flat island. It doesn't actually have any oil. That's where the oil is transported to so that they could load it on ships, on tankers. But a couple of things are important. First of all, if Iran's oil exports are halted, that would only make because they won't have access to Iran's oil. This is just a place where the oil is loaded onto ships. So if they cut Iran's exports, that will only add to the crisis because Iran's oil exports, of course, are smaller compared to the other side, much smaller compared to the Arab family dictatorships on the other side of the Persian Gulf because of sanctions for over all these years. But it will only make things worse if Iran's exports are cut. And Iran has been sanctioned for all these years. We've gone through periods where we've been exporting almost nothing due to the maximum pressure sanctions. We've already been there. We can take the hit much more easily than Europeans and Americans. Europeans and Americans, when they find out that the price of energy has gone through the roof, and it was done by Trump for nothing, just for the sake of Israel, just for the sake of the genocidal Zionists who are slaughtering the Palestinians in Gaza and the Lebanese in Beirut and elsewhere, I don't think it's going to end well in the United States. I think it's going to create political instability in the United States. So Iran's ability to absorb pain is much greater than the United States, especially since we're the victim. We did not start this war. We did not invade the United States. We never threatened the United States. And of course, Joe Kent's resignation basically proves that everything Iran said was true. Iran was not seeking a nuclear weapon. Iran was not a threat to the United States. This war was in order to please the Israeli regime and to please the Zionist oligarchy and the Zionist lobby in the United States. That's what we all knew. But now someone from inside and near the very top associated with Trump has admitted the fact.
It seems like the U.S. and Israel, we saw Benjamin Netanyahu, I think supposedly, it appears that he was live at a press conference, although social media is still very much on fire about what are his whereabouts and his status. I think that says a lot about people's view of Israel at this point. But more to the point, Professor Maradi, is this. Israel and the United States are pushing for a further escalation. And so I'm wondering then, why do this if, as Donald Trump says, everything has been militarily destroyed? He says this almost every time he's on camera. He says that Iran's air defenses are destroyed. He says Iran's missile systems are destroyed. He says the military has been weakened. All the leaders, of course, they have been decapitating and striking leaders and killing leaders. But then why do this? And what do you make of how the war has been going up until this point, given that now the U.S. and Israel are choosing this path of potentially, definitely a catastrophic escalation?
Because they've lost the war, because he's lying. Because Iran's navy, the naval assets that are useful for war are all in tunnels, deep underground, alongside the Persian Gulf coast and alongside the Gulf of Oman, waiting for the time to attack. And these speedboats have missiles, anti-ship missiles, they have sea-to-surface missiles, sea-to-sea missiles. They have everything they need to destroy their antagonists. So the Navy is very much there. The U.S. has not been able to touch Iran's missile and drone capabilities. Iran is hammering U.S. assets across the board. That's why the price of energy has gone up so much, because the United States is unable to stop Iran. It's unable to stop its missiles or drones, nor is the Israeli regime able to do so. Remember, during the first few days, they kept lying and saying that Iran's they're running out of missiles, they're running out of drones, they're running out of launchers, we've destroyed everything. It was 3 weeks now. And the strikes, the Iranian strikes, are growing stronger and more devastating by the day over the last few days in particular. And we're seeing less and less anti-missile activity across the board because they've all been wiped out. So it's not going well. And Trump is desperate. But instead of doing the smart thing and walking away and pretending he won like he did with Yemen, remember, he had a 7-week war with the people of Yemen. And he carried out all sorts of atrocities. And Hegseth, like him, kept claiming great victories and kept saying how they're slaughtering everyone and defeating the enemy, and the enemy's on their knees. And then after 7 weeks, Trump said they capitulated and he walked away. He was the one who had capitulated. But this war is something different. Iran's capabilities are infinitely larger. And by the way, Yemen is going to enter the war soon as well. Mm. And Iran hasn't escalated. The overwhelming majority of Iranian assets have not been used yet. Its latest technology has not been used. You and I have discussed this many times. This is nothing new. Anyone can go to our discussions from last year or just a few months ago, but they can go back over a year, maybe 2 years back. And I've been saying the same thing throughout. Everything that's happening now I've explained in detail multiple times just on your show. So there's no surprise. And it's clear that the Iranian capabilities are much greater than what they're using right now. And the resistance in Iraq, their capabilities are much greater than what they're using now. The escalation ladder is something that we will use wisely. But Iran and the axis of resistance can go far higher than where we are now. If Yemen enters the war now, if they go after Saudi key assets and installations, and they shut the Red Sea, and the Iraqi resistance expands its operations and destroys U.S. assets in northern Iraq, and perhaps takes Kuwait.
Appreciate the love, family.
And then if Iran begins to fire its more advanced weapons, and if the United States tries to take this island, it's a flat island. The Iranians will just hammer it and kill more and more Americans. And what will happen while all this is happening? The global economy will collapse.
Right.
So, and the world will know who did it. They'll say it was Donald Trump, but more importantly, it was all because of Zionism. And who are the Zionists? They're the genocidal maniacs who slaughter in Gaza. They're the genocidal maniacs who bomb apartment blocks in Lebanon, and Western journalists based in Lebanon call these Hezbollah strongholds. Why? Because they're foot soldiers of the Epstein class. Because they're too cowardly to tell the truth that they're just slaughtering civilians. So while the Western media is trying to pretend that everything is going well, if it was going well, Trump wouldn't need all these countries to join him and help him to open the Strait of Hormuz. If Iran was obliterated and destroyed, and if it was collapsing, then why is he so angry? And why does he need more troops? It's obvious. He's lost the war, and he will continue to lose the war, and he's digging himself deeper in a hole, and it will not end well for him. It will not end well for the world, but it will not end well for him, and it will not end well for Zionism, because the world, it knows who is behind this.
Well, Donald Trump has just come out and lambasted NATO, calling it a paper tiger, and basically calling it, and ironically it being the United States, given that as he has also said, the NATO is nothing without the United States. But he has grown very angry over the fact that there are no other countries coming in line with his overall objective of opening, quote unquote, the Strait of Hormuz, which to me personally seems to be a fantasy at this point, given that a lot of what Iran has done already seems to be irreversible, unless Iran decides to change its course. But a lot of this, what we've seen, I think, is Iran's capabilities can, even if it had smaller levels of capabilities, lower levels of capabilities, it would still be able to effectively shut this straight down. So it is a big problem right now, Professor Marandi. And then you have reports, I don't know if you saw them, there are reports now that the missile fire that Iran is conducting against Israel is causing social calamity. There are people saying that they haven't slept in days and days and days because they are constantly hearing sirens. They're going off every several hours, if not even more per day. And reports are that Iran is actually increasing the volume of its strikes steadily. And it's obvious that there's a strategy here. Can you comment on this? Because a lot of reports have said in the West that Iran's capabilities have been, as you have noted, eradicated. But now more and more are coming to the realization that Iran has far more to go and is carrying out a plan. And I don't think the U.S. and Israel were planning for that.
A couple of things, Danny. First of all, opening the Strait of Hormuz, even if it was possible, and I don't think that the Americans can do it, but even if it was possible, if there's no more oil and gas, if the infrastructure has been destroyed, if there are no more tankers, what's the use? If they take Hark Island and everything is destroyed, then what victory is there? The Americans will have to withdraw not just from this region, but from across the world, because the economy will collapse. All those hundreds of bases will have to be emptied. I think a lot of soldiers across the world will be stranded because the United States simply will not have the ability to take them home. I don't think that Trump and his gang understand what a global economic collapse would actually mean. I don't think they fully comprehend what is at stake here, especially at a time when the global economy is not doing well at all. And people have been discussing how we are on the threshold, the global economy is on the threshold of disaster anyhow, before this crisis, before the price of energy has been going up and up and up. So that aside, and of course, the Caucasus won't remain capable of exporting oil or gas either, if push comes to shove. But all that aside, I think that if you look at the situation right now in Iraq, if you look at the situation in Yemen, if you look at the situation across West Asia, across the region, people are outraged. And for the first time, they're seeing the empire being punished. No one, except for these corrupt elites, are sympathizing with Qatar. No one is sympathizing with the Saudi regime or the UAE, despite the propaganda of their media outlets. People don't like them. People hate them. People see them for what they are. People see their statement, the statement that Erdogan and Sisi and Abdullah and these dictators in the Persian Gulf put together against Iran without even condemning the war that the US and the Israeli regime carried out. And they condemned Iran for striking US assets in these regimes, even though their territory is being used against Iran. They're firing HIMARS missiles. Their airplanes are flying from these areas. Their bases are being used against Iran. They're waging war against Iran. They're a part of the war effort. I mean, to say that they are neutral is an insult to our intelligence. So when the Iranians are actually being very, very wise and humane. When they strike Iran, they don't tell anyone beforehand what they're going to do. When the carpet bombing starts, we sit at home, we sit at our place of work, we sit wherever we are, waiting to see if we're going to be killed or not.
Mm-hmm.
But when the Iranians, when they retaliated against Qatar, they told everyone, and the Emirates, they told everyone to leave these areas.
Yeah, they released a whole outline of where they were going to actually strike as well.
And many Iranians were upset. They said, well, this is going to help them down drones and missiles. But the Iranians did it anyway. And they succeeded in destroying all the things that they meant to destroy.
Yeah.
So the region is, has changed. People see the Trump regime as vulnerable, as incapable of winning a war against Iran and the axis of resistance. And this is something that people across the global south are seeing as well. So people are seeing that the emperor actually has no clothes. The emperor is not the the power that no one can confront or no one can resist. It is actually quite vulnerable and weak, and that will have huge implications. I mean, again, this is without going into the issue of economic collapse, because when economic collapse happens, it's going to have consequences that are beyond anyone's imagination. Tens of millions of people, if not more, will be on the move from Africa, from Asia, from Latin America, and they'll be going to places that are collapsing themselves. That's what economic collapse means. Nowhere will be spared, but everyone will blame. Everyone will know who to blame.
How Trump has lashed out on allies, what it says.
Yeah, I mean, it just shows how weak he is. It just shows how he's failed, and it says it doesn't. It just shows how either U.S. intelligence and Zionist intelligence and Mossad intelligence is much overrated, or that the people around Trump are lying to him, or that Trump is lying. All of these things were predictable. You and I have been discussing this for a couple of years. Your audience knows this quite well. Everyone can go over our discussions of months ago, and we've gone over all of this. All of this was predictable. It was clear as day that this would happen. It was clear as day that the United States would fail. But whenever I would say this, these mainstream Western journalists and think tankers would call me a mouthpiece of the regime,
Right.
and yeah,
They're still pulling out the hair for you, President Ramdi. There's a target now on you, according to these Israeli, Ukrainian, Zionist, shadow entities. Because you've been on mainstream media in the UK and elsewhere. I know that you were on, I think you were on Newsmax recently too.
Yes.
And they're still pulling out their hair every time you speak, despite the fact that the reality, there have been people sharing what you said in 2024, literally exactly what Iran was going to do, not because you had insider knowledge, but because you had been following what Iran was already doing. You've been following what Iran was saying. Ray McGovern, a friend of this show, says all the time, when he was in the CIA as an analyst, briefing the president, he would say, hey, how about you read what the Soviet Union is saying about things and maybe you'll learn something. And that is kind of what you've been doing. And now still, it's hard for them to believe that what you said as far back as 2024, yes, on this program, to Sky News, they pulled out their hair when you said it, but what has happened is exactly what you said.
I actually said this before Corona. I once said it on Press TV, and it went somewhat viral a few years ago. And people in the Persian Gulf were saying, well, why would Iran do this? And I said, well, if you attack Iran.
Revolutionary salute to our brother Vincent Brown Scott for the donation to the war chest. Revolution is way of life. Absolutely appreciate the love. Soldiers salute.
If the U.S. attacks Iran with all those bases in the Persian Gulf that you've given to them, and you pay for, it's not just that they pay for those bases. They give them the land, and all the costs are paid for by the Qataris and others. And they allowed them during the 12-day war to use those bases to help the Israeli regime, just like Turkey did as well. Those drones that murdered General Soleimani, they came from Doha, from Qatar, from the US base there. They flew from there to Iraq and murdered him. So what they've been doing to Iran is nothing new. The Iranians have tolerated this. During the 1980s, when the West encouraged Saddam Hussein to invade Iran, and they gave him chemical weapons, especially the Germans, but the West, the collective West, was behind it. These Arab family dictatorships gave him $200 to $250 billion back then, and dollars back then were worth a lot more than today. But after the war ended, Iran forgave them. When Saddam went into Kuwait, they changed their policy. Iran forgave them. Or when Qatar, which supported ISIS and Al-Qaeda in Syria, and supported the Saudi genocide in Yemen alongside Erdogan. Erdogan supported the genocide in Yemen, and he supported ISIS and Al-Qaeda in Syria. And of course, now we see from Joe Kent, he too is saying this was all done by the Americans. ISIS, Al-Qaeda, this was all our thing. And General Soleimani was fighting against them. And things got out of hand. And interestingly, Kent still thanks Trump for murdering General Soleimani, the fool.
Yeah.
No moral compass there. But the point is, Qatar supported the genocide in Yemen. They supported these genocidal monsters in Syria, which great benefit the Qatar and Erdogan did to the Israeli regime. I mean, the treachery is just unbelievable. But when the Saudis and the Emiratis turned against Qatar, Iran saved it without getting any concessions, without saying, okay, you have to do this for us, you have to give this, that you have to, nothing. And then again, after the 12-day war, Iran didn't go after them. After the murder of General Soleimani, Iran didn't do anything. So, but now it's not going to be the same anymore. Iran will not accept in future these regimes, if they survive, to behave the way they did over the past 47 years.
No, and the results are already there. I mean, we just in a brief 24-hour, less than 24-hour period, Iran essentially crippled Qatar's capacity to pump gas for years now, because Qatar Energy, which was hit, some analysts are saying it's going to take months just to get it operable again, and then for it to be able to do what it was doing prior to the war, years, 3 to 5 years.
And this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Just the tip of the iceberg, exactly.
So if the Americans expand the war, if they try to take Iranian territory, Iran can wipe out everything. And that is finished. Then they no longer need the Strait of Hormuz. And the U.S. economy will collapse, and the U.S. armed forces will collapse. But Trump, in his, whether, I don't know what they have on him, what he did to what he's done to little girls, or it's Miriam Adelson, or the money, or his son-in-law, or his daughter, or they've convinced him that he is I don't know what role he is to play. I have no idea, or maybe it's a combination of all these things. I have no idea what goes on in this madman's mind, the deranged mind of this fool. But he is pushing the world towards disaster. And a lot of people, Danny, are saying, let him do it. Let him do it. The system is so corrupt that people across the world, you can see it in social media and their responses to some of my interviews, and I'm sure in other interviews, they're saying, let it collapse. This system is so bankrupt, so horrible. I mean, I personally don't want to see the global economy collapse, because people will die of hunger across the world. But I understand why people would say this. Yeah. People in Iran and across the world would say, they say, look, this system that the West has created is so horrific, so unjust, so corrupt, so, everything's in the hands of the Epstein clan. I understand why they would want, or they would be prepared to accept the collapse. I understand why they would say that.
Obviously, there's U.S. interests in trying to weaken, trying to destroy Iran. We've covered that together. We've covered that separately for so long now.
There are no U.S. interests. Danny, there are no U.S. interests. U.S. interests are in having good relations with Iran. Zionist interests are for the United States to confront Iran. That's all there is to it. There is no reason whatsoever for the United States to be antagonistic towards Iran or Russia. There's no reason whatsoever. There's no logical reason.
No, definitely.
But it is the Zionist lobby, the Zionist regime that wants. Remember what the U.S. ambassador said to the regime in Tel Aviv. He said, if they take the whole region, that's fine. And they are, of course, the most moral army in the world too. So they can take the whole region and just slaughter everyone. That is unofficial U.S. policy. That is the policy of the West, the unofficial policy. So this is where we are right now, and but none of this is in the interest of the United States. The U.S. ambassador to the Israeli regime is not looking for not looking out for the interests of the United States. He's an enemy of the United States. He's a traitor to the United States. He's an asset for the Israeli regime.
Kofi, follow me.